snipers, IEDs, ambushes, often intensely brutal, almost always lethal. Considered by experts to be the deadliest type of combat. To succeed in this deadly art, you need speed.
You want to go high-low?
Just by their very design, urban settings are deadly traps for attacking forces. Tall buildings, narrow alleys, sewage tunnels, and possibly even a subway system.
Go!
The buildings can provide excellent sniping posts, while alleys and rubble-filled streets are ideal for planting booby traps. Defenders can move from one part of the city to another undetected, using underground tunnels to spring ambushes. For battle commanders, cities are a planning nightmare. Danger lurks around every corner, in every doorway, on every stairwell. Urban areas are the ultimate killing grounds for unprepared soldiers.
The reason it's so dangerous is because the civilians are walking around, because going into a town or a city, you don't know who is the enemy. All right, it could be from a 13-year-old boy all the way to somebody that's 60.
Why'd you freak out in the door? I didn't freak out. I was trying to turn fire. My weapon jammed. I said, why'd you turn back? You never turn back. Right there, you get shot and you pull back and then run back.
Right now with the houseborne IEDs, the houseborne improvised explosive devices, and also with the numerous snipers out there, I got to say that urban operations is probably the hardest thing the soldiers are doing right now in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not taking anything away from the convoys, but dismounted ops, you have no armor on. All you have is your IBA and your weapon. It's very dangerous. Versus a mounted operation where you have your Humvee or you have your tank. No, you have no armor. It's your IBA and your weapon. Rounds can come from numerous angles. You got your 4 men with you. It's either that round's going to hit your IBA, or it's going to big weapon systems on those tanks, those 50 cals, those Mark 19s, or those 240s. It's just 5.56, and sometimes 5.56 is not going to penetrate through that wall like you need it to. So you're going to have to do your movement through your training and take that enemy out, going through that door, accepting, am I going to get shot? Am I not going to get shot?
This is what happened. You know, he was down, the person right on top of him like this. All right? You need to act like there's a 4-foot extension on it, all right? Because that's what I'm called for. You're going in there, possibly getting a shot. Once he goes, say he takes the corner, and I start following him up, if he pops off the shot, what do you think is going to happen to me? I'm going to like, oh, right?
Now, and anticipate being engaged in conflicts. Their forces really don't have the technology to stand up and fight against us. So we're anticipating a more urban fight, guerrilla warfare, insurgent warfare type fight, where they'd utilize the urban environments and tactics that guerrillas fight with in order to not become decisively engaged with us.
One of our hands coming over that rail and pushing to the roof.
Defenders may have the advantage of detailed local knowledge of the area, right down to the layout inside of buildings and means of travel not shown on maps. Attackers tend to become more exposed than the defender, as they must use the open streets more often. The defenders can use secret and hidden routes. So it takes special training, full use of all weapon systems, and unique tactics to successfully attack and conquer defenders in urban settings. Coalition armies are turning to technology to help train soldiers. Technology that is saving lives. Helping soldiers to learn from their mistakes before they make them in battle, where the consequences are considerably more severe. Training for urban warfare is serious business. Experienced soldiers, no mistakes, can kill. Kill everyone in a combat team. So it's important that all soldiers understand the fundamentals of urban warfare tactics. Fort Benning, Georgia, one of the largest infantry training bases in the U.S. Army. It's here that some of the toughest urban warfare training happens, even for new soldiers. The U.S. Army understands that everyone must learn the basics of urban warfare from the day they join. All the training is based on experience gained from combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. Even the buildings are designed to replicate what soldiers will see.
The village was designed based on the experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan. They tried to make their layouts as close as possible to the buildings over there, all right, to give our trainees the best possible training aids to prep up for future deployments. We generally work on a 4-man stack, but it can increase to a 5 or a 3, but no less than 3.
Now, I'm 4-man. When you get in here, here's where you're going to stand. You're going to start from the front to the left. All right? Got it? Go out. That's right.
Well, a 4-man team, that's what the minimum amount of personnel you'll need to gain dominance in that room. All right, in that room, you need to hit your points, which is basically whatever the room is laid out. The points of dominance are usually the far right or far left corner. 1 and 2 will be in position in that. The number 3 man will be by the door, and number 4 man will secure the door. Well, those rock bag movements, squeezing movements, what they're doing is they're signaling each other and say, okay, without sight or sound, say, yes, I'm ready to go. Let's go into this room. Because once you look back at your fellow members in that team saying, yeah, we're ready to go, somebody can sneak up on you. So they need to do it without sight or sound. Hey, I'm going to squeeze your leg or I'm going to tap you. Let's go inside. The soldiers prepare for it by training, drilling, and trusting their fellow soldiers. That's the only way that you can get prepared for urban warfare. If you don't trust your buddy going into the fight, that means there's going to be an opening inside your security that somebody can get a shot in. So just training and trust.
Status.
1 up. 2 up.
3 up. 4 up. We're clear.
Where's your sector at? Immediately when you come on the
It's just straight up, right? Just like.
Yeah, right. So why are you shooting at that target way over there? You got from the 12 to the right, all right?
He's already dead.
You got from the 12 to the left. So if you went all the way up there, you could have shot that target. All right? All right, try one more time. Go up.
Throughout NATO, armies have created mock villages, even cities, to help train soldiers in the deadly art of urban warfare. The villages are designed to recreate tactical problems and deadly scenarios which soldiers are likely to encounter. The designs are based on experiences from combat, such as Bosnia, Somalia, Afghanistan, and Iraq.
The soldiers we're training are second lieutenants, about to be platoon leaders, leading 40 men or more. The assessment that I'm giving them is a leadership assessment. I don't expect them to know everything in the book, but I do expect them to lead, to make those calls, possibly learn from their mistakes here. And that's the biggest thing is the counseling piece. We give them a mission. After the mission is done, we break it down. Okay, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Try to shed a light on better ways to lead that platoon. And also, they're getting one-on-one, peer-to-peer counseling. For some of these second lieutenants have been prior enlisted before. All they're doing is they're adding on more and more things to their toolbox. So when they get down there to their soldiers, they can be the best they can be to lead them into battle. The key to leadership, to me, is knowledge and knowing your soldiers. If you know the mission, you know your equipment, you know your soldiers, and how to properly employ them, nothing can beat you.
The Multiple Integrated Laser Engagement System, more commonly known as MILES, is used by the United States Armed Forces and other militaries around the world for training purposes. It uses lasers and blank cartridges to simulate actual battle. Miles provides the U.S. Army with the ability to simulate combat without using lethal bullets. In Miles training, coated laser beams are fired rather than bullets. Miles can be used with infantry and armor.
What we have here is a representation, we call it a PUT, Programmable Universal Target System. This frame will go on an HLVW.
The coated laser beams assure that an M16 does not kill an M1 tank. The system uses eye-safe lasers to engage targets.
These are the IR sensors that will receive the shot from the opposing forces' weapons, will receive the shot from the airbursts or whatever event's going on. In the center you have a harness control unit, which is the interface between the soldier and the vest. It tells him if he's been hit, it tells him if he's been reset, if he's bit past, if everything's working great. The umpire control gun is the main tool for the observer controllers. They can use it to kill, resurrect, and reset soldiers. Also, they can provide critical wounds, light wounds, near misses, and all kinds of events with vehicles and soldiers with their equipment.
This system has helped redefine urban warfare training by giving soldiers immediate feedback on their actions. Feedback that can someday save their lives. In urban ops, sometimes armor can really make a difference. Sometimes it can save lives. It often has the protection, mobility, and lethal firepower to turn the tide of battle in urban settings. But it takes special training.
They're a lifesaver. If you get somebody that's pinned down or you can't get to an enemy, heavy armor moves up, takes that enemy out for you. So for example, if your squad or your platoon's pinned down in an alley and there's no way that you can't get to that shooter, right? He has a better position than you. You call in that heavy armor, they can go in there and take that shooter out, free up your platoon, your squad. Big lifesaver, big lifesaver. I've seen it many times. The reason the rooftops are a tactical advantage is because if the enemy is up top of the rooftops and they're in the high ground, it's harder for us to take the enemy out because we have to basically bring the fight to them. All right, to take them out on top of a rooftop, that means we got to go through a building, numerous dangers of ID, other personnel up there, and to have the upper hand.
The spatial qualities and perspective of urban versus conventional warfare differ dramatically. Urban combat is more vertical in that operations routinely reach up into tall buildings and down into sewers and basements. Urban war is fought in 3 dimensions, 360 degrees. Urban combat is extremely manpower intensive and produces significant attrition of troops and materials among the attackers. It's an incredibly dangerous killing ground for untrained and unprepared troops. So training for urban operations has to be good, very good. In the future, coalition forces are most likely to engage in low to mid-intensity operations around the world. It's also likely that a large percentage of these operations will draw military forces into urban settings. By the year 2025, 3/5 of the world's population, that's over 5 billion people, will live in urban areas. Urban terrain can be used as a force multiplier by the smaller force and as a force inhibitor against the larger force. It's been done many times in conflicts over the past century.
urban commanders is really important, especially in an urban environment. Because you could go into that room and there could be an opportunity that the shot's not there. Either your weapon malfunctions or you're too close. And you might have to take that enemy down with your bare hands. And that's why we train our soldiers on the combatives. So they can better defend themselves if that situation arises. Well, the rules of engagement are for our soldiers to know when to engage a personnel. Okay, is it hostile, is it not hostile? It pretty much breaks down the rules. Mainly for our brand new enlistees saying, okay, is this grounds to shoot that person? Or is this grounds to take this person down, all right? That's the biggest thing about somebody who just came in the military is they don't want to get in trouble, all right? And if you break down the rules of engagement to them to the T, as a leader myself, as a sergeant first, the final thing I want to add about urban warfare is just do the training. Do the training. You can never do too much urban warfare training, all right? And those teams that deploy over there to combat, they've trained together more a year or so, and they get to trust each other. Don't expect to put a team together and then deploy the next day. Without that training, somebody will get shot in that team.
It's important to train on urban operations, and due to our current operating environment and also the operating environment of the future, the fact is that the world is becoming more and more urbanized with bigger and more cities throughout the world, and it leads us to believe that most of our conflicts in the future will be held in urban environments. Therefore, we're training for the future as well as our current fights. It's also a tactic that we kind of got away from, even though we used it quite a bit in World War II, and then sparingly also in Vietnam, and yet kind of lost focus on the training. And I think at this point in time, we will not lose focus on this training and continue it throughout the future.
Urban areas are the ultimate killing grounds for unprepared soldiers. There are no second chances in urban warfare. They soar, they bend, they roll, they break. They are jet fighter pilots. They come to do battle. In a fictitious war over the skies of northern Canada, Hornets, Prowlers, Vipers, and Eagles all go head-to-head with some of the world's best fighter pilots at the controls. Fighter pilots are the ultimate balance of courage, skill, and dedication. Within coalition air forces, they are the best of the best. Fighter pilots. Intensive training in a simulated war. Experienced international fighter pilots and rookies getting their first taste of air combat. This is Exercise Maple Flag.
I mean, the whole Maple Flag scenario is developed to get a new wingman through his first 10 combat missions. Because statistically speaking, the first 10 combat missions are where the most losses occur. So if you survive your first 10 combat missions, as a new wingman, then you're pretty much good to go after that.
So what Maple Flag tries to do, it's 2 weeks long. A wingman will fly 10 times over those 2 weeks, and we try and give them as close as possible to those first 10 missions, as much as we can close to wartime, while still keeping it safe.
Maple Flag kicks off every spring in Cold Lake, Alberta at Four Wing Air Force Tactical Training Center.
Cold Lake is unique because of its airspace. We have miles and miles of surface area where we can drop munitions for simulation, as well as the airspace over top of it in which we can have the air-to-air engagements. And the whole thing is pretty much unrestricted. The best part is seeing the international flavor brought to the exercise. To see the junior pilots dealing with their counterparts in other air forces or other ground forces, and to see them finally get that air of satisfaction when the exercise draws to a close and they really have learned some really valuable lessons.
English is the universal language of aviation, and fighter pilots are fighter pilots. We normally don't have a problem getting our point across, being all type A personalities, but that is also a big aspect of Maple Flag as a social side, to learn how other countries operate, to learn how to communicate effectively with those other countries, and learn the strengths of each aircraft platform that they fly.
It starts from an international focus of being able to fly together as different countries in a coalition environment. Most of the countries are NATO, there's a couple that aren't. And be able to work together and fly together and integrate is huge. It means that we can develop standard operating procedures so that we're compatible if we do have to go to war.
You have Singaporeans, Germans, French, Americans, British. We've got guys from New Zealand here, and we really do talk the same language. Small deviations, but we're all really on the same page, fighter pilots, and I think we're all on the same mindset.
It's all about training fighter pilots, teaching them war fighting skills to achieve mission objectives, and possibly help them stay alive. Aerial combat. It is fast, furious, and intense. It always has been. The dawn of aerial combat was over the trenches of World War I. At first, it was just pistols and rifles fired at one another. But soon, both sides had mounted machine guns and had developed coordinated dogfighting tactics. This was the birthplace of the first aces. By the time of World War II, aerial combat had evolved a great deal. Tactics, weapons capabilities, and understanding your opponent's strengths and weaknesses, all were critical to success in battle. Aerial combat had progressed to the point where pilots needed a fine balance of intellectual and physical abilities, plus possess an intuitive understanding of spatial dynamics. They had to think of aerial warfare in 3D. Today, despite massive changes in technology, the rules of aerial combat are virtually the same. Learning basic and advanced fighter maneuvers, learning how to drop bombs and strafe targets, and learning how to master the art of dogfighting. Here at Maple Flag, veteran fighter pilots come to hone their skills and mentor novice pilots.
Everybody gets training, but our focus is on the junior wingman. Some of the leads and more experienced guys will get experience leading and seeing new scenarios, but really we're focused on making that guy survive if he ever has to go to war.
I love the job because it's actually, for me, it's an extremely meaningful job. On any given day, you don't know what you're going to expect. For every time you step in that jet, you get a new flight, you learn something new. I like that. There's no monotony in the job, that is for sure, which is really great. And I take it very passionately, the whole idea of serving my country.
For the junior flyers at their first Maple Flag, this is where countless hours of training begin to sink in. This is where the lessons learned begin to pay off. Because they know, in real combat, there are no second chances. Fighter pilots are a special breed, different than other combatants. They must overcome and master incredible physical and mental stresses in order to become competent aerial warriors, driven to succeed at all costs. This is a profession of planners and perfectionists. For in aerial combat, there is no margin for mistakes.
Qualities of a good fighter pilot would be dedication and professionalism.
You've got to really enjoy what you're doing so that you can put in the effort. The working days that we have are actually quite long. For the amount of flying we do, we may have a mission that lasts for an hour and a half. We'll brief for an hour and a half before the flight, then on the ground, all the ground operations, and then come back down, and then we may debrief for anywhere up to 2 to 3 hours afterwards, depending on the size of the mission. So as you can see, for an hour and a half trip, you've already done 5 hours of briefings.
Teamwork is extremely important for fighter pilots. Although you're the only guy in your jet, we never go anywhere operationally alone. We're always as a bare minimum of care. And we do that to take care of each other. It gives us 2 brains, 2 sets of eyes, 2 radars, and twice the amount of weapons we would carry. Being a fighter pilot rules. It's everything I dreamed it would be. And in fact, it's more. Almost on a daily basis that I fly this aircraft, I'm impressed. I come down happier than I went up. It's phenomenal.
Fighter pilots love their jets. Just like a Formula One driver and his car, the bond between a pilot and his aircraft is close. For pilots who fly the F-18, that bond could be called love. The F-18 Hornet, supersonic, multi-role, tactical fighter jet. When it powers up, its twin engines shake the earth.
The F-18 is probably one of the best fighter jets in the world. It's multi-role capability, so we can fight air-to-air, we can dogfight and shoot missiles beyond visual range as we fight our way into the target with bombs on. So self-escort strike, we try to do it all, and we do train to do it all.
That jet is incredible to fly, and there's absolutely nothing I can possibly compare it to. You know, it's all of the biggest challenges I've had, like, you know, combined in a 3D sort of momentum. Imagine yourself hurling down the highway at twice the speed in the opposite lane of traffic, talking on a cell phone, eating a donut, drinking a coffee, trying to change the CD player, fiddle with your GPS, and then take that and multiply it by 10, and you'll get there.
It's really hard to explain how incredible it is to fly this, and honestly, at the time when you're flying the missions, you're so focused and so busy, you don't really have time to think about it, but there are those moments when you actually just look around and you see the big detail behind you and your missiles on the rail, and it's an incredible feeling. And you have all this power and this maneuverability right at your fingertips. It's like having the best roller coaster ride that you control, and it's an unbelievable sense of freedom and excitement, and it's like that every single mission.
It is responsive and challenging and agile and sexy and the most satisfying thing you will do. It takes every ounce of your ability to fly the jet well, but there is no greater satisfaction than when you have that perfect mesh of, you know, man and machine together. And it feels literally, although a bit cliche to say it, like you're strapping it on, like it becomes a part of you. And when you're up flying and working 100% focused, there is no separation. You're just one, you know, element together, and there's no greater feeling in the world. And the best way I can describe it is that when you're not flying, you walk around feeling half dead until you get back in the air, and then you feel complete again.
As professionals, whether leading a wing of aircraft or understanding new tactics, fighter pilots are always trying to improve themselves to ensure success in battle.
In a nutshell, the weapons course is like a PhD of flying fighters, with the caveat that you're learning how to teach.
Both Nacho and Rivo are heading into their last days on the fighter weapons instructor course. Final exams at Maple Flag involve leading an entire package of 60 jets into combat.
Single hardest course I've done in my life, and it was also the single most rewarding course I've ever done in my life. So it was, I mean, the opportunity to do, you know, just to take yourself to that level of tactics is extremely satisfying in the end. But it was also, nothing on that course is free. You had to work for every bit of it.
The toughest part is, I guess, dealing with the long days. We put in, with the fighter weapons course, we're putting in 13, sometimes 15-hour days straight. So that takes a toll on you. You get tired, but I think it's worth it. I think it gets you in that combat mindset. You're not going to always have that rest, and you have to be able to perform to your peak ability, even under a lot of stress and with lack of sleep.
You guys are pretty modest about that. They are the best of the best. They have risen to the top of the squadron. They have been outstanding performers. Just to be considered for the course, you have to have shown that you put in the extra effort, that you have not only the desire, but certainly the capability.
I actually don't know what it was about flying fighters. I think it's just something that struck me, and I had to do it. I just had to do it, and it drove me. So I really am living the dream right now. It's actually a really neat feeling when you're walking out to the jet as a package commander, and you're looking around. You see all these jets firing up their engines, and you see the AWACS take off and the tanker going up, and it's a really neat feeling. It's like this is my package, or this is my war for the day. If you can listen to some of our comms or our radio, you'll actually hear a lot of the excitement on the radio when you start getting into engagements, or you get lit up by a surface-to-air missile, and in the moment, you're just really wrapped up in the moment, and it does feel like a big deal, and you can really hear it in our voices when we play back our tapes, and it's certainly no lack of adrenaline, and by the time your hour-and-a-half or 2-hour mission is over, you feel pretty wiped out. It's emotionally, mentally, physically draining.
Dude, I can almost sense the stress coming off you. Yeah, vaping. Hard work only begins now, dude.
As fighter pilots, we're always trying to learn as much as we can from every trip, and especially experience like package commander for the day, leading all those jets across the line. So, I mean, you try and always learn as much as you can, so you can do it much better the next time. And trying to get as good as you can as quickly as you can.
I think even being done the course, I think the learning is still going to continue, and I certainly haven't learned everything, and I certainly haven't gained all the experience that I possibly could have. And to be honest, I think if a fighter pilot ever thought that you've gotten enough experience or you've learned about as much as you can learn, it's probably time to hang up your wings and move on.
For fighter pilots, one of the greatest dangers comes from ground fire, missiles and guns. It's something every pilot must learn to deal with, even at Exercise Maple Flag. In a simulated war game like Maple Flag, with none of the bullets real and no one actually getting shot down, the only way to know who won in the end is with some very high-tech eyes in the sky.
The evolution of Maple Flag and mission planning itself has gone from the basic acetate slide and the whiteboard into currently we have the portable flight planning system, and that allows us to take a look at the aircraft in real time prior to the mission in order to achieve the planning. Along with that, various presentation software.
Before each mission, the planes are programmed into a computer-generated version of the mission flow. The pilots get to see what they're about to do up on the big screen at the mass brief. Before takeoff, each jet is loaded with a GPS pod that sends images back to Cold Lake's Air Force Tactical Training Center.
The ACMI pods, they take the information via microwave and send it back to AFTTC, the Air Force Tactical Training Center, to be displayed on the screen. And that provides us with the continuity of learning that the participants require throughout the exercise.
With today's theater of operations, there's so much going on in the air and on the ground, it can get tainted and mixed very quickly. It's very important that the forces in the air know where the friendly forces on the ground are and therefore not engage. So the advancements that we're making at Maple Flag, technology-wise and with our training systems, are enabling that type of learning.
Fighter pilot against fighter pilot. Air-to-air combat. Blue versus red. This is just one layer of the war game played at Cold Lake. The other is much harder to see, but just as deadly.
With our surface threat emitters, we can replicate some of the more modern threats. We are constantly reviewing that and going through undergoing change to improve that, as well as provide a more robust threat capability. This will enable us to turn up the heat, as it were, in the scenario.
Those turning up the heat are the men and women at the controls of STU, the Surface Threat Electronic Warfare System. They're the ones shooting the fake missiles at the jets.
My role is actually to play the bad guy. So when they fly over top of me, it's over top of my sights. What happens is I will launch a surface-to-air missile against them, and then they'll have to maneuver against it. It's basically like a big video game, really. And yeah, it is a fun job. I have 5 operators, and they all operate the threat emitters from here. Today was a good day. I think we had 3 kills today, but that's not bad.
Exercise Maple Flag is designed to slowly escalate the threat levels of war. Day by day, the missions become more difficult, more challenging, more threatening. In air combat, there are no second chances. The likelihood of getting shot down behind enemy lines is very real. So fighter pilots have to practice escape and evasion tactics, especially the new pilots.
It's probably some of the most valuable training we do outside of just the flying, because for us, like going down enemy territory, especially a lot of the places that we are fighting these days, the last thing you want to do is be getting caught. So those courses there teaches us how to evade long enough for somebody that has way more training than us to come and get us.
Did is morning scenario was a standard flight, and we came back and the intelligence feedback was that we've had a shoot down. So that was the setup for the afternoon. Where we went with that is we actually took a pilot down to Wainwright and put her on the ground in this case, and had told 30 bad guys to go and find her. So she was moving and had to find and link up with some sympathizers, and then eventually get rescued from a village and helicopter extracted.
I met up with some partisan forces who are local people that are friendly to my side, and they took me to a village. They'd kind of hide me. The Dutch troops came in to extract me and ended up getting ambushed. So then I got to sit there and watch a massive firefight where I'm sitting there hoping that these guys win so they can come and get me, and then make our way out and to a chopper. So that part was very different than any previous training I've done, because there's actual firefight going on around me while I'm getting out. So watching those guys do their job was that was probably actually a highlight for me, getting a chance to. I got a whole new respect for those guys. They know what they're doing there. I do believe they have a saying, if it ain't raining, it ain't training, and today's all true.
She had a wet day. It's any day that you're not behind a desk is a good day. So I think she had fun, and I think it hammered home and certainly refreshed a bunch of lessons that we've all learned on various courses we've taken.
From evading the enemy to flying your first multi-plane mission, it's all part of being a rookie pilot during Exercise Maple Flag. As Exercise Maple Flag nears its final days, camaraderie, competition, and achievement fill the air.
Is extreme camaraderie here, and I wouldn't say that it is competitive. It's competitive just by nature, because we are all type A personalities. Nobody really accepts everybody not giving their best.
It is the single tightest unit that you can have, especially on an operational squadron as well as on a course like that. Our bond on our squadron is our word and trusting each other with our lives every time we fly together. So it has to be a tight unit. You don't have to be everybody's best friend, but you need to be able to trust everybody that you fly with in your life.
The only way I've ever been described to people with the job is that it's not something that you really do, it's something that you are.
In reality, you're signing up to go to war as is required and do the job. And I think all the families and the wives and girlfriends, fiancés have to realize that. And it takes a while to actually kind of digest that and process that and actually come to grips with that. So when the time comes and they ask for us to go over, which we're all ready to do right now, and they already understand that that's going to happen.
The reality of it is, every day you fly, something bad could happen. So I make sure I kiss my kids in the morning before I go to work, and I tell my wife I love her, and leave it on a good note just in case.
For coalition fighter pilots, risk is part of the job. But for these consummate professionals, it is an acceptable risk. Doing something they love. Being among the best fighter pilots in the world.